I was driving home from work on a long, somewhat dark road. I'll admit I was tired and cold and just wanted to get home. The speed limit was 60 miles per hour and I was doing closer to 70. Suddenly, a girl with long blonde hair, a black coat with brown fur on the hood, and jeans just showed up in front of my car. I knew there was another car to my left up ahead, but it was black and all I saw that it was stopped before I saw her. I managed to maneuver around her. I was freaked out. I turned to a side street and stopped to figure out what was happening. Then a tall guy with a black coat and short hair gets out of the driver's side of the stopped car, grabbed her, dragged her to the car while she was fighting him, and put her back into the car. I called the police and gave them a description of the car and the direction it took off in. I never heard anything about it. I have not stopped thinking about her since. It's it's been 2 years. I was exploring the area behind my house shortly after we moved in. The area back there had once been a small quarry that was filled with water. It was a pit of a pond that supposedly went straight down 60 feet if you stepped into it. I was walking around the edge and I came across a backpack filled with old video game cartridges and a set of clothing just laying on the ground. They were for the Nintendo 64 and we found this around 2004, so they were outdated. Next to it was a set of clothing. The clothes were laying on the ground, spread out, pants and shirt, so it looked like someone was laying down. They looked like they'd been there a long time, same with the backpack. I told my parents and they called the cops. There had been no reports of missing children or anything in the area. We never got an explanation, but it was still weird. I was deployed to Iraq and we stayed in a former prison in Baghdad. During the night we would see and hear strange things. The base at this time only had soldiers, but we would often hear children playing from inside of the prison, and one day we decided to dig deeper to see where the kids were. When we finally found where the noise was coming from, we found a room with the ceiling caved in. We didn't find any kids, but we found kids' books, toys, and kids' clothes. Everything looked like it wasn't moved in weeks, but we would still continue to hear the kids in the year we spent there. My girlfriend and I are in a long distance relationship. We typically take turns traveling between each other's countries, Australia and Canada. About 2 years ago, it was my turn to travel over to Australia to stay with her and her mom. For a bit of background, my girlfriend's room was built as an extension slash add-on to their garage. So to get to it, you had to walk through the garage to get to her room. About a couple of weeks into my trip there, I wake up around 1 in the morning and the room is just glowing red. I look up at the ceiling and see this black figure crawling to the ceiling. It moved in such an inhuman way, almost like it was breaking every one of its bones to move. I start screaming, which wakes up my girlfriend, and she looks up at the ceiling and starts to scream as well. Instinctively, I grab my pillow and whip it at the figure. The next thing I know, everything went black and I'm waking up a few hours later. My girlfriend is fast asleep, so I think it was just some kind of weird dream. At that point, I have to go to the washroom. So I walk through the garage and try to quietly open the garage door to get into the main house. Previously, her mom had mentioned that she was getting annoyed with us staying up late at night and going through the garage door to use the washroom. Since her mom's room was down the garage door hallway, each time we would open it, the door would click loudly and wake her up. So I'm standing there at the garage door and I try to open it as quietly as possible. As I turn the handle and the door clicks as I push it open, her mom just starts screaming at the top of her lungs. I thought it was out of rage for waking her up, so I immediately closed the door and sped back to my girlfriend's room. I climb into bed and gently nudge her awake to tell her that her mom is screaming. She gets up and goes to see whether her mom was still angry and try to de-escalate the situation. About 20 minutes go by and my girlfriend comes back into my room completely silent. She asks me if I saw the room glowing red earlier as well as a figure in the ceiling. I say yes, and she goes wide-eyed and says that she thought it was just a dream too. She then says that her mom wasn't screaming at me. Apparently, When I opened the door, it did wake her up, but when she woke up, there was a black figure standing at the foot of her bed, and it was slowly moving towards her. She then experienced a blackout as well and was woken up by my girlfriend checking in on her. Yeah, the entire house slept with the lights on for a month after that. I was about 10 when this took place. I'm in my early 30s now. I remember it was well into the late night hours when I saw my grandmother was standing at the front screen door looking outside. She was talking to someone. I looked and I saw she was talking to my dad. I couldn't see my dad's face because he was facing away from her. He was shirtless and he had a very large distinct mole in the middle of his back, so that's how I knew it was him. He was also mumbling something I couldn't understand. My grandma was telling him something along the lines of, "If you love them so much, why did you go and do this?" My mom wasn't there with us to see this. She had left moments before after she got a call letting us know my dad had been driving drunk and hit a mule on the highway. My dad was in the hospital hanging on to life. I had a schnauzer that could hear a cat stalk across a Persian rug. The slightest noise could wake her up from a slumber and set off her constant barking. She made a great tent companion while on backpacking trips. Bears, raccoons, and skunks would all get fair warning if they came within range of our campsite. One morning we woke up from a night without interruptions in the backcountry of southwest Colorado, and I found my tent's central skyline was no longer staked down by the aluminum stake that I used, but instead by a piece of aspen branch that had been carved into what looked like a tiki statue. Nothing too ornate, but a snarling face with teeth had been carved from the bark, and it had obviously been heated in a fire to give it a brown color. My dog didn't make a sound, and I apparently slept harder than I thought. I scrambled out of the tent and looked around the small alpine lake and saw no other campers nor any sign that people had been around. I cut my trip short and hauled ass the 8 miles back to my car. Not a single other car in the lot at the trailhead. When I was in high school, I would always be the first to arrive home out of my family, having the entire house to myself. I've never been superstitious or someone who's scared easily, and the hour I had alone was my favorite time of the entire day. My bedroom was upstairs, and one day when I got home from school, I placed my bag away and started up the stairs. About halfway, I stopped because I thought I heard something coming from upstairs, so I stayed and listened. I heard a very slow rendition of the melody from Ring Around the Rosie, crystal clear, coming from my bedroom. I was 100% sure I was the only one home, and I had absolutely no device that could be playing the music unprompted, especially Ring Around the Rosie. I froze in fear and listened for about 15 seconds to make sure I was really hearing it, which I was. I just turned back down the steps and waited around in the living room for my family to get home before I went back upstairs. I went in my room a few hours later and there was nothing out of the ordinary. I know it's not a very climactic story, but it's something I think about every now and then. I've never told anybody about it because why would I? That was the first time something truly strange happened to me. In high school, AOL was new and chat rooms were super popular. I was 16 when we finally got the first PC in AOL and the whole works. Creepy old men would lurk in genuinely teenage-run chat rooms because, well, they're creepy old men. Some guy had started to message me. He was in his late 30s, but it was the internet. Who knows if he really was. It could have been 78 for all I knew. I was a teenage girl. Why would I be interested? So I told him not to talk to me. He then made a fake account claiming he was a teenage boy, but then started talking like he did before, and I caught on. Why so much effort to talk to a plain 16-year-old? I filed complaints, but only so much can happen when he hasn't really done anything illegal. Whatever. So one day, my parents are out and my brother is gone. The home phone rings and it's him. He tells me he knows I'm alone. My parents are out, and he knows what my house looks like. He had described it over the phone. He tells me he could just easily come to me if I asked him. I told him I'm not amused and to just stop. He disappeared after. No idea. It was just weird. I still have no clue.